Hi, this is Gary Engberg. We're on the Baraboo River here in Baraboo, Wisconsin, where they're releasing the first young sturgeon that have been hatched in the new Wild Rose Hatchery, being released at different spots along the Baraboo River since the dams have been taken away, trying to restore the Baraboo strain or the Baraboo sturgeon back into the river here. This eventually will run into the Wisconsin River where there's sturgeon, but they're putting some extras in. Matter of fact, 6100 1 to 2 inch sturgeon right here in the Baraboo River.
Up to the Devil's Dam, and there weren't any above the Devil's Dam. Now we've been moving them all the way up the Wisconsin system, and they're doing very well. Some of our surveys have showed hundreds of sturgeon in like Petenwell flowage and Castle Rock and some of those flowages. So these are surplus sturgeon from that effort to raise sturgeon that we've been stocking up and down the Wisconsin system. Some of those, at first we thought, they kind of got eliminated from the Wisconsin for a multitude of different reasons. Some of it was from the dams on the Wisconsin, which are still there, but some of it was from pollution from the past that knocked them out.
Dan, and any of the natural reproduced ones that reproduce in the rivers, are they imprinted at all to return?
So studies show that imprintation, they get imprinted at first feeding. So some places they actually try to raise sturgeon. They have some of these sturgeon wagons, they call them, where they actually raise sturgeon on site in a small van so they can imprint on that water from that system, because that studies have kind of shown they imprint at first feeding. So.
And when you say imprint, is that like they have there's a smell or some
there's a characteristic to the water that draws them back there. In the Winnebago system, out of the Winnebago system, they can travel up different rivers to spawn, and some go up the Embarrass River, some go up the Wolf, some go up, different rivers coming in, and but there's always like 20% of any adult fish population that's kind of rovers. They're on the move. They're like scouts. I think it's nature's way of recolonizing new areas or reestablishing themselves. So there's always a percentage of every adult fish population that's kind of randomly on the move. And that's what we hope some of those fish will come back here as well, some adult fish. So far we haven't documented any, although we have had a couple of reports of people sighting sturgeon, but we haven't ever documented or verified any of it. So
in the Baraboo River, you're saying?
In the Baraboo River, yes.
Are they going to be competing with any other natural fish in here?
I don't think so. Although we're talking about that this morning, as there's originally before the dams came out in this waterworks site, we had like 11 species of fish. Now after the dams have been out, there's 41 species of fish. So there's a lot more fish that come in to use these areas, and that's what we hoped. A lot of fish like to spawn in gravel and rock riffle areas, which this has, and there's not that much rock riffle areas in the Baraboo River. Most of it's soft sediments. This is one of the few areas that has steep enough gradient and rock bottom that attracts a lot of fish that like to spawn here and feed here. So, as far as predation, sturgeon aren't really attractive to most other fish. Fish, they're not as subject to being preyed on by other fish like you might be concerned about. And when they get larger, they have really, their structure, they have these scoots on them. It's kind of like a body armor that's very sharp. And they're almost razor sharp, so it's kind of a protective mechanism they have. But they're not real subject to predation from other fish. So that's a plus too.
What do they eat?
Well, they eat they like small crustaceans, small snails, insect larvae, worms, leeches. They're kind of a bottom feeder, bottom filter. So they eat a whole variety of different things. And I think that's part of the reason they survive fairly well, because they do eat a variety of things. So.
Dan, how long will they reside here before they move into the Wisconsin River?
It's hard to say. I'd hoped if we did start a plan that reestablish them over a longer term, I'd hope to put them in winter. They have a tendency, if you stock them in winter, the more stay put. So my hope is they stay put, for a while. But I guess I can't answer that. I don't know.
What's the dam? Sorry, I'm not that familiar with the dam history.
Yep.
What wiped them out originally, and what's the situation now?
I think, just the dams themselves. I think they would have a tendency. Fish have a tendency to seasonally move. When I say migrate, it's more of a seasonal movement. And oftentimes they went down through dam systems and then couldn't get back up. they just kind of seasonally moved down and then couldn't get back up. So that's typically what kept them out of these systems. And also the dams, part of the attraction was the whitewater rapids. And these oftentimes the dams trap all the sediments coming down the river. So like these areas through here were all mud. When the dams first went out, they were all silt and mud. And now if the dam's been out for a while, it's slowly, the currents have scoured it back down to the original gravel and rock. So part of the attraction left too when the dams trapped all the sediments and covered all the rocks and all the gravel that they like to spawn on and other things. So that's part of it as well. So.
Nelson, ready?
Are you going to use a thermometer, Scott? Or? You did. So, I mean,
I go about 50-50 in good shape.
Yeah. But can we, and Mike and I take it to the other sites?
Absolutely.
Okay. Done with it.
Scott Stewart and technicians here are releasing some more sturgeon into the Baraboo River. Just raised with the Wild Rose Hatchery in the new sturgeon facilities. 6,100 1 to 2 inch sturgeon are being released here into the Baraboo River.
So
sharp. It's kind of in that mid-range, real sharp. Even right now, they're not sharp.
it's a little hard to see their. It's hard to see their mouth, but they have a. It's a pretty, like an adult sturgeon, it's pretty long.
These fish were hatched this spring.
Okay.
Typically sturgeon spawn in April sometime, depending on what.
This is Gary Engberg, and here you're seeing some of the young sturgeon that are being released in the Baraboo River.
Essentially,
Notice their size, very small, 1 to 2 inches. 6,100 are going to be released into the river.
And we're going to scatter them out in several different locations, so we try to maximize.
So cool.
How many of these? You're putting in 6,100 areas along the river here?